"Don't you want to try the coffee I made just for you, honey?" my husband Larry asked. He smiled, but something about it felt strange. It didn't reach his eyes. I was sitting at my sister-in-law Isabella's fancy dining table in her home in Chattanooga. We were all gathered there for our monthly family brunch. The coffee cup in front of me had a weird smell, almost like metal. It made my stomach feel uneasy. My name is Sophia, and I'm 31 years old. I never thought I'd ever wonder if my own husband might be trying to poison me. But after 4 years of marriage and getting accidentally sick so many times, I had learned to be careful, especially around Isabella. She always seemed to plan things that ended with me either feeling sick or embarrassed. And she always smiled sweetly, just like Larry was doing now. "How sweet of you," I said, forcing a smile, while my mind tried to make sense of what was happening. The smell from the coffee was strange, nothing like normal coffee. It reminded me of the tea I drank at Isabella's house last month, the one that sent me to urgent care. The doctors never figured out what made me sick, and Isabella swore she made the tea just like she always does. Isabella was watching me closely from across the table, stirring her own cup, which she hadn't touched. "Larry has become quite the coffee expert lately," she said with a smirk. "He's been practicing different ways to make it, just for you." The way she said "for you" gave me goosebumps. I had noticed Larry spending more time at Isabella's house recently. He said they were planning a surprise for our anniversary, but something didn't feel right. There were whispered talks that stopped when I walked in, and strange texts I happened to see on his phone. And now, this odd-smelling coffee. I raised the cup and pretended to sip, watching both of them closely. Larry and Isabella exchanged a quick look, and that glance told me everything I needed to know. I picked up my phone and acted like I had a message. I stood up quickly. "Oh, look at that. I need to make a quick work call. Isabella, do you mind if I use your study?" As I walked past her place at the table, I pretended to trip. In that moment, I quietly switched our coffee cups while pretending to catch my balance. "I'm so sorry," I said, standing up straight again. "I'm such a klutz sometimes." Isabella gave me a tight smile and waved it off. "Just try not to break anything in the study," she said. I nodded and rushed out, my heart beating fast. From the doorway of the study, I could still see the table. Now I just had to wait. I watched as Isabella lifted the coffee cup to her lips. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to stop her, to shout a warning. But I needed to know the truth. I'd spent too many nights in the ER, too many hours in pain, always after eating or drinking something at their house. It hadn't always been this way. When I first met Larry at a friend's wedding 4 years ago, he was kind and charming. Isabella seemed nice too. She invited me to family events and even helped plan our wedding. But looking back, the warning signs were there. She would accidentally spill things on me during important events. When she helped cook, my food always seemed to taste a little off. At first, it was small things, an upset stomach, a slight allergic reaction. Larry always had a reason. Maybe it was something you ate earlier, or you're probably getting sick. But over time, I started to see the pattern. The worst was 3 months ago. I ate breakfast at their house and ended up in the hospital. The doctors found something strange in my system, but couldn't figure out what it was. Larry told everyone it must have been old medicine I had taken by mistake. Now, I stood in the study doorway, holding the frame tightly as I watched. Isabella took another sip of the coffee. Larry was busy on his phone, looking relaxed. My own coffee cup, the one I never drank from, sat untouched on the table, cold. The coffee cup was still where I left it. That strange, metallic smell hung in the air, making me shiver. I noticed a small shake in Isabella's hand as she set the cup down. Her face had gone pale. "Larry," she said, her voice unsteady, "something's wrong." Larry looked up, confused at first. Then his face changed. His eyes went wide with horror when he realized which cup Isabella had used. He jumped up so fast he knocked over his chair. "Isabella, what's happening?" he asked, panicked. Her hands were shaking badly now. I don't feel right," she said, trying to stand. But she stumbled, grabbing the edge of the table to keep from falling. "Larry, what did you put in that coffee?" I stepped out of the study. My phone was already recording. Larry was beside Isabella now, his face pale. "That wasn't supposed to be your cup," he whispered. The room was so quiet that everyone heard him. Isabella's eyes went wide, realizing the truth. "Call an ambulance," she gasped, sliding to the floor. "Please." "I can't." I called 911, my hands calm even though everything around me was falling apart. "Emergency services?" "Yes, we need an ambulance at 1558 Maple Grove Drive," I said clearly, keeping my phone recording in the other hand. "My sister-in-law is having a serious reaction to something in her coffee. She's still awake but shaking badly." As I spoke to the dispatcher, Isabella looked at me. The usual cold look in her eyes was gone, replaced by real fear. "Sophia," she gasped. "You switched the cups, you knew." "Help is on the way," the dispatcher said. "Please stay on the line." Larry was panicking. "Isabella, what's happening?" "It wasn't meant for... Shut up, Larry," Isabella snapped, her voice sharp through the pain. For a moment, her anger was stronger than her fear. "This is your fault," she cried. "You said it would just make her sick enough to miss the board meeting next week. You promised it couldn't be traced." My blood went cold. The board meeting. I was supposed to present a proposal for a huge client. The same client Isabella had been chasing for months at her firm, which just happened to compete with mine. Suddenly, everything made sense. "The tea last month," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "And the breakfast 3 months ago. Those weren't accidents, were they?" Isabella's face twisted in pain as another wave hit her. "The tea was supposed to keep you home the day you presented the Johnson contract," she admitted. "But you went anyway." She bent over, clutching her stomach. "Larry said, he said we just needed to make you look bad. So clients would think you weren't reliable." Outside, I could hear the sound of sirens getting closer. Larry backed away from us, looking nervous. "Isabella, stop. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," she snapped, though her words were starting to slur. "We've been planning this for months, ever since Sophia started doing better than me at client meetings. You were supposed to make sure she drank the coffee today." The paramedics rushed through the front door. I stepped aside to let them through. As they lifted Isabella onto a stretcher, I stopped the recording on my phone and quickly sent the video to my private email. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. Larry stood frozen, watching everything fall apart. "I'll ride with her to the hospital," I told the paramedics firmly. "I want to make sure my sister-in-law gets the treatment she needs." I looked Larry straight in the eye. "And I'm sure the doctors will be very interested in learning exactly what was in that coffee." At the emergency room in Chattanooga General Hospital, things were hectic as doctors worked to help Isabella. I waited in the lobby, holding my phone tightly, the recording of her confession still saved and ready. Her trembling voice, the fear in her eyes, it was all the proof I needed. This wasn't just in my head. I hadn't imagined it. "Family of Isabella Sermon?" a nurse called out. I stood up. Larry was nowhere to be seen. He had mumbled something about parking the car almost 15 minutes ago and hadn't come back. "I'm her sister-in-law," I said, stepping forward. I followed the nurse through the double doors. "How is she?" I asked. "She's stable now," the nurse said seriously. "But we found some dangerous toxins in her system. The doctor needs to speak with you about something strange in her blood tests." Dr. Madison, a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, was standing outside Isabella's room. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "can you tell me exactly what happened before your sister-in-law got sick?" I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. "I think you should hear this first." I played the recording from brunch. As the doctor listened, her expression changed from concern to shock. "This is very serious," she said, making notes on her tablet. "The substance we found doesn't end up in coffee by accident. This looks like someone put it there on purpose." Just then, Larry appeared at the end of the hallway. His face was pale and sweaty. He had clearly heard what the doctor said. "Sophia," he began, stepping toward me. "Let me explain." "Stay back," Dr. Madison said firmly as she pressed the nurse's call button. "Security to room 355, please." Larry raised his hands in the air. "This is all a misunderstanding." Isabella was confused. She didn't know what she was saying. Really? I said, pulling out more evidence. Then what about these messages between you and Isabella? The ones where you talked about making sure I wouldn't make it to the Henderson presentation? His face went even paler. You went through my phone? Yes, I said. After I found something strange in your desk drawer. And I saved the texts. I turned to Dr. Madison. I've been in the hospital 3 times in the past 7 months with mystery illnesses. Can you check if what made me sick matches what you found in Isabella's system? Dr. Madison narrowed her eyes. We'll need to do some tests, but yes. And security will make sure your husband stays available for questioning. 3 guards showed up and stood beside Larry. He looked completely shaken, the calm and confident version of him gone. Isabella and we were just trying to help you, he mumbled. You were working too hard taking all the big clients. Isabella said if we could get you to take a break. By poisoning me? I said. My voice was steady, even though my heart was pounding. My hands were shaking with anger. How long have you been doing this? Was it you who messed with my food at the Christmas party too? Larry didn't say a word. His silence told me everything I needed to know. Behind him, I could see into Isabella's hospital room. She was hooked up to machines, looking scared and weak. The confident look she always had was gone, replaced by fear. She knew the truth had finally caught up with her. Detective Lauren is on her way, Dr. Madison said quietly. She'll want to get statements from everyone involved. I nodded, feeling oddly calm. The truth was finally out. There was no hiding now. Detective Lauren arrived less than an hour later. She had a strong presence that filled the quiet hospital hallway. She was an experienced investigator who worked on cases involving family abuse. She listened closely as I played the brunch recording and showed her the text messages. Mrs. Bennett, she said while reviewing her notes, you mentioned earlier hospital visits. Can you tell me more about those? I pulled out my phone again and opened a document I had been keeping for months. The first time was in February, after dinner at Isabella's house. I had bad stomach pain and felt dizzy. The second was in April, that was the tea incident. And the third was in June, after breakfast with them. My voice stayed calm as I explained. Each time, the symptoms were similar, but just different enough that the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. The detective narrowed her eyes as she looked over my notes. I had recorded all the dates, symptoms, and what I ate or drank. You've been keeping records? She asked. Yes, I said. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out another phone. I also started carrying a backup phone with a different number. I used it to secretly record conversations when I was around them. I have several recordings where Isabella and Larry talk about what they were doing. They don't say everything clearly, but it's obvious what they meant. In one of the recordings, Isabella's voice came through clearly. The Henderson account is worth millions, Larry. We can't let her ruin everything we've worked for. Just stick to the plan. A few days of illness should be enough. Larry's reply was just as bad. I've got something stronger this time. She won't make it to the presentation. Detective Lauren's face turned serious as she listened to the recording. Through the window of Isabella's hospital room, I saw her awake now. She looked nothing like the confident woman from brunch. Now, she looked scared. The hospital is running toxicology tests, the detective said. Dr. Madison has already found several chemicals in her system that don't occur naturally. We'll also need to collect samples from your home. Suddenly, we heard a loud noise down the hallway. Larry was arguing with the security guards. His voice was desperate and loud. I need to talk to my wife, he shouted. Sophia, please. You don't understand. We were trying to protect you. Detective Lauren stepped in front of me. Mr. Bennett, you're not helping yourself, she said firmly. We already have evidence this was planned. Larry let out a dry, bitter laugh that echoed in the hallway. We were just trying to slow her down. She was overworking, taking every big account. Isabella said if we could make her take a break. By poisoning her? The detective snapped. That's not protecting someone. That's attempted murder. Larry turned pale. Murder? No, that's not what we didn't mean. Then what did you mean to do? I asked, my voice calm. When you put something in my coffee this morning, what did you expect would happen? Larry didn't answer. His silence said it all. Behind him, I saw Isabella watching us through the hospital room window. Her face was frozen in fear and deep thought. I could tell she was already trying to figure out a way to explain it all, maybe make it seem like they were just trying to help me, not hurt me. "We'll need both of their phones," Detective Lauren told the guards. "And I want officers at both doors. No one leaves until we have the full toxicology results." Dr. Madison walked into Isabella's room, holding a tablet and looking serious. She had the test results. Detective Lauren and I followed her in. While Larry stayed outside with the guards, Isabella tried to sit up straighter in her hospital bed. But her body was still shaking a little. Dr. Madison looked at her tablet and spoke in a calm, serious voice. "The toxicology report shows high levels of several substances in your system. The most worrying one is a chemical usually used in lab testing. It's not something regular people should have." Isabella's face turned pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. Larry said it was just something mild. "Mild symptoms?" Detective Lauren said sharply, opening her notebook. "Like the ones your sister-in-law has been having for the past 7 months. Just then, another detective walked into the room, holding an evidence bag. "We found these in Mr. Bennett's desk at the Sermon Marketing Office," he said. Inside the bag were several small bottles with medical labels and notes about dosages and side effects. My knees felt weak as I realized what this meant. "You were keeping records," I said, shocked. Like I was part of an experiment. "It wasn't like that," Isabella said quickly, but her voice shook. "We just had to track what worked. The first few times didn't do enough. You kept going to meetings anyway." "So you gave her more each time," Detective Lauren said, looking through the bottles. "Did you know these chemicals can be deadly in higher amounts?" The room went quiet. Through the window, I saw Larry slump into a chair in the hallway, his head in his hands. "The Henderson account," I said slowly, as the truth came together. "It wasn't just about one presentation, was it? That client asked for me personally. You wanted me gone, for good." Isabella's face twisted with both anger and fear. "You were ruining everything. I worked for years to build that client list. Then you show up, and suddenly everyone wants you instead. And Larry said he could fix it," I said. "By killing me." The words filled the room like a heavy cloud. "We didn't mean to," Isabella began, but Dr. Madison cut her off. "The amount that was in today's coffee," she said, looking straight at Isabella, "was much higher than what we found in past hospital visits. If Mrs. Bennett had actually drunk it, the result could have been serious, possibly deadly." Detective Lauren turned to the other officer. "Get a full search warrant for their homes and offices. And contact the drug company listed on these bottles. We need to know how they got their hands on this stuff." Isabella leaned back into her pillows, all the fight gone from her. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. Larry kept saying we just needed one more try." I stepped closer to her hospital bed, my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. "Every time I got sick, every meeting I missed, every client I lost, you were both there. Watching. Taking notes on how your poison was working on me. What kind of people does that make you?" The room went completely silent. Outside, I could hear Larry being read his rights as more police officers arrived. Isabella just stared at her hands. She couldn't look me in the eye. I turned away from her and looked at the detective. "I'm ready to give my formal statement now," I said. The trial lasted for weeks, but it felt like years. I was in court every day, watching as the prosecution carefully explained everything Larry and Isabella had done. The evidence was strong. The bottles found in Larry's desk, the notes tracking each time I got sick, the recordings, and the text messages where they planned it all. What stayed with me most was how different they looked during the trial. Isabella, always so confident and proud, now looked small and tired in the defendant's chair. Larry couldn't even look at me. He kept his eyes on the floor the entire time. Expert witnesses explained how dangerous the substances were. Dr. Madison gave the strongest testimony. She showed how the doses had increased over time, proving they meant to hurt me more and more with each attempt. A representative from the drug company confirmed that Larry got the chemicals through a college friend who worked in their research department. This wasn't just about business. the prosecutor said in her final words. This was a carefully planned effort to hurt Mrs. Bennet. It grew more dangerous over time and could have ended in death. When the verdict was read, I didn't feel happy, just relieved. Both Larry and Isabella were found guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy. The judge's words echoed through the quiet courtroom. These were planned actions, done to a family member over a long period of time. That deserves the highest possible sentence. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs. I thought about how greed and jealousy had changed 3 people I once trusted into strangers. They lost everything, their business, their good names, and their freedom, just to try to bring me down. I stood at the podium at the Chattanooga Business Leaders Conference, ready to give the main speech. The moment felt full of meaning. This was the kind of success Isabella had tried so hard to keep me from reaching. The Henderson account, the one she and Larry had wanted so badly, had brought in several more major clients. Now, I was known as one of the top marketing professionals in the area. Success isn't just about talent or working hard. I began, looking out at the crowd. It's also about honesty, about building real relationships based on trust. I paused for a moment, letting that message sink in. Sometimes, the biggest threats to our success come from people we know. But getting through those hard times makes us stronger. After the speech, several young professionals came up to me to ask for advice. One woman, her eyes full of determination, asked how I had stayed calm through everything that happened. I focused on what I could control, I told her. I trusted my instincts, gathered proof, and didn't let fear stop me from going after what I wanted. That evening, I got an email from the Henderson client. They were renewing their contract for another 4 years. I smiled, thinking about how different things could have been if I hadn't trusted my gut that day at brunch. The local newspaper had printed a small story that morning. It was about Isabella and Larry starting their prison sentences. I didn't read it. Instead, I focused on writing a proposal for a new client. Because the best kind of revenge isn't about getting even, it's about moving forward and succeeding, even when others try to stop you.